Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and November 19th, 2022 marks 1 year ago on this day that we sadly lost the heart and soul of the Power Rangers franchise, actor Jason David Frank, at the age of 49 years old after taking his own life due to ongoing struggles with depression and mental health issues. So I am dedicating this video to the memory of Jason David Frank, and I am taking this opportunity to address not only the passing of Jason David Frank, but how much the man meant to me and to all of the Power Rangers fans worldwide. So I was pretty much into Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from the very beginning. I watched the show every single week, whether it was on Sky One or on Fox Kids, or even on one of the German stations that we had in our old place. Never missed an episode once, and I was completely in love with the show. My best friend was, everybody in school, everybody I knew was going nuts for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And the episode itself was pretty standard. Good guys versus bad guys, good guys coming out on top every week. So it was nothing you hadn't seen before. So when halfway into season one, we got a 5 part special episode called Green with Evil, and it introduced us to a brand new character named Tommy Oliver, played by Jason David Frank. So this was his debut slash first appearance. Jason David Frank's introduction in the show was a real game changer. It definitely, in my opinion anyway, changed the course of history as far as Power Rangers was concerned forever. So, Jason David Frank's first appearance as Tommy was a monster hit. He went down a real storm, and he was super over with the fans from the word go. Now, unlike the original 5 characters that made up the Power Rangers team, Tommy's debut was a bit different. He started out as a bad guy. He became the Green Ranger and served Rita Repulsa. And unlike previous episodes of Power Rangers where they would fight the bad guys and always come out on top, Green Ranger presented a very physical challenge. This was the first time that the Power Rangers really got their asses handed to them and essentially got owned at every corner. Because I felt that a lot of the villains that the Power Rangers faced every week were pretty straightforward. I think the closest villain came to be a pretty big threat, aside from Goldar, was probably King Sphinx. He was probably the closest to an actual threat to the Power Rangers. But the Power Rangers as a team never really got tested until the Green Ranger came onto the scene. And I still remember it very well. I rewatched the entire series a few years ago. The Green Ranger, in his first appearance, trashed the command center, took out Alpha, and took out Zordon. That's making a big statement because no one really broke into the command center like that. No one ever done that before. So here we have the Green Ranger under Rita Repulsa's control. Within the span of 4 or 5 minutes, made a huge statement. This was not someone like Goldar or King Sphinx or Pudgy Pig. This was someone, he was here to make a statement. He was here to make an impact. And this was a guy who was not here to mess around. He was here for one reason and one reason only: destroy the Power Rangers no matter what. And he sent out a message loud and clear. He was coming for all of them. And I still remember that he got into the Megazord, took out the Power Rangers, and physically dominated each one of them individually. What an amazing debut. And this was just part one. You know, the next four parts, the Green Ranger just completely dominated the Power Rangers, especially the Red Ranger. This was the first time we ever saw the Red Ranger really get tested. Jason was obsessed with the idea of who this Green Ranger could be, and it was great storytelling. And mega props to Jason David Frank. He really knew how to play the bad guy so well, and that laugh, that evil laugh, became so iconic and became a staple of the Power Rangers franchise. When you think of evil Tommy or evil Green Ranger, you think of that laugh alone. It's so iconic, and it's over the top, but it's good over the top. And he was just an amazing character. He was so cool. And eventually, the Green Ranger would be free of Rita's control, and he would join the team, becoming the sixth member of the Power Rangers. And to me, when I think of classic teams of the Power Rangers, I will always think of Jason, Tommy, Billy, Zach, Trini, and Kimberly. That to me is the Power Rangers. They were great as five, but they became legendary when they became six. And a lot of that was down to Jason David Frank's portrayal and performance of the Tommy character. And he was just so compelling. He played a huge part in the success of the show. The show was successful and popular anyway, but when Jason David Frank came on board, it just made the show take off like a rocket. And over the course of time, Jason David Frank's popularity as Tommy just exploded. Everybody watched the show for him, and he was quite possibly the most popular character of the entire franchise. And the Green Ranger would leave once, and then he would be brought back, and then he would leave again, and then they bring him as the White Ranger, because I remember reading about that the Green Ranger character was pretty much done, and there was an idea of bringing in Ryan Steele from VR Troopers to be the White Ranger, but due to the character's popularity, they decided to bring Jason David Frank back as the White Ranger, and they made him the leader of the team. And from there, it just grew and grew even higher and higher. And a lot of that was down to Jason David Frank. And he also showed great versatility as well as an actor. You know, he could be downright evil, someone you didn't want to mess with. But then at the same time, he could play the ultimate hero, someone you wanted on your side, someone who would watch your back. And he went through different iterations of his character, just like the Power Rangers franchise went through different changes, from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to Power Rangers Zeo to Power Rangers Turbo to Power Rangers Dino Thunder. He went through all these different changes, from the Green Ranger to the White Ranger to the Red Zeo Ranger to the Red Turbo Ranger to the Black Dino Thunder Ranger. You name it. Tommy, to me, carried the Power Rangers franchise. He always kept the interest going, bringing in new fans. And aside from his work as, you know, one of the cornerstones of the Power Rangers franchise, he was very giving and loving to the fans. He was always making appearances at Comic Cons, always had time to meet the fans, and he was really loving to the fans. He loved the fans so much, and he was very passionate about how much they mean to him. And, when you had all of the other cast members kind of like distance themselves from the franchise and move on to other things, Jason David Frank carried the torch very proudly, and he was right in the heart of things as far as Power Rangers were concerned. He would make a number of special guest appearances on Power Rangers specials. He was right there. And when they brought the Power Rangers back in the comic books for Boom Studios, he was right there promoting it, bringing new interest in for new fans. And the trailer for the Shattered Grid story arc, where we got to see him take the evil Tommy character to a brand new place that had never been explored before. And we saw him in the full Lord Dracon costume with the long black hair and the scar on his face, sitting on that throne. Goosebumps. Always hoped we would see a Lord Dracon miniseries for Netflix with Jason David Frank, but unfortunately, that's never happened. So, in terms of how much the man meant to me, he was a huge part of my childhood, definitely up there with Kevin Conroy, and I finally got my opportunity to meet Jason David Frank at Comic Con in 2015, and he was exactly as I would imagined him to be, an awesome human being, super cool. He was like the Fonz, he was such a cool guy and very giving, very loving, very kind, and he was just a really great guy to meet. And I got my picture with him, and just like Kevin Conroy, it was one of those memories that I cherished and still do to this day very, very much, because I got to meet one of my all-time favorites, one of my heroes from my childhood, one of the cornerstones of the 1990s. So when I learned the news that Jason David Frank had passed away, I was still coming to grips with the shock of Kevin Conroy passing away. It hadn't even been a week, since he passed away. And to now learn that Jason David Frank had also passed away, it really shocked me for a number of reasons. Because, first of all, Jason David Frank was much younger than Kevin Conroy. Kevin Conroy was in his 60s. Jason David Frank, on the other hand, was only 49 years old. So, big difference between 40s to 60s. It's a big difference. And it really, really hurts because I essentially lost two important figures from my childhood: Batman and Tommy, aka Kevin Conroy, and Jason David Frank. And to learn later on that Jason David Frank had taken his own life due to an ongoing battle with depression and mental health issues really saddened me, because on the surface, you know, Jason David Frank was so loved, so respected by everyone. Never heard a bad word about him. As I said earlier, very loving, very passionate, always giving back to the fans, always taking time to meet fans. You name it. This guy was a hero. He was a hero to everyone. And to hear him trying to battle his own demons just shows you that, you know, he is still human after all. He still has feelings like we all do. And it hurts. It really, really hurts a lot because, it just shows you that you could have it all, but you could still feel not so great on the inside. And to know that he's no longer with us anymore just really hurts so much. And to lose him at such a young age just makes it even twice as painful because he still had a lot of good years in front of him. There was still so much more for him to do. And to see him go the way he did, it's really sad. But at the same time, I hope that Jason David Frank is at peace and that he's no longer in any pain and he's missed every single day. There's not a day that doesn't go by that, I don't think of him because he was such a big part of my childhood, just like Kevin Gilroy. And, it hurts, because to see all your heroes you look up to growing up just going one by one because they're irreplaceable. You don't really pick up a guy like Jason David Frank every day, just like Kevin Conroy. He's a once in a lifetime figure. A guy like Jason David Frank only comes once in life, and when he came along, he made a huge impact, not just on me, but on everyone. When you think of Power Rangers, you think of Jason David Frank, and when you think of Jason David Frank, you think of Tommy, because he was practically embedded in the franchise from the TV shows to the movies to the games to the comics, you name it. This guy was Power Rangers. He was the man. All due respect to the rest of the cast members, they all did their part. They all did a great job, but he put it on the map as far as I'm concerned. And bringing him into the franchise was a stroke of genius, and the rest is history. And I'm forever grateful that I grew up in the 1990s and got to watch him on TV every single week, whether it was in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Power Rangers Zeo, or the Power Rangers movie. He was such a huge part of my childhood, and I will forever be grateful for that. And I'm so happy that I got to meet the man himself and have a picture with him. And it's a moment that, as I said earlier, that I will always cherish for the rest of my life. And it was, just like Kevin Conroy, a huge deal to me. It meant the absolute world to me, and I'll forever be appreciative and grateful. And it's one of those things that I will definitely take to my grave for sure. So that is going to be it. I am going to wrap this up now, and I want to say a special thank you to Jason David Frank for all of the epic memories you gave me and to all of the fans worldwide for over 3 decades. Your legacy and your memory will live on forever, and I speak for everybody else worldwide. You will always and forever be the heart of the Power Rangers franchise, and you are dearly missed every single day. And you will always be a huge part of my childhood. Thank you, Jason David Frank, and may you rest in peace.